Thanks for coming back and welcome. If you haven't sat in on the farms and fields yet, today I'm Bobby Linda Mulder, Program Director for the Snohomish Conservation District for our agricultural team. I have Karina Cheever here from WaCSE with my assistants with all the tech stuff, helping as a track lead as well. I'm going to just do a quick bio for Jadey, and then we'll get going on her PowerPoint. So Jadey joined WSDA in 2019 as part of the surface water monitoring program. She transitioned to supporting the Washington State Soil Health Initiative and Sustainable Farms and Fields as the data chemist. Scientist? Oh. Doesn't look like anything I know. Data scientist in 2022. Jadey has a BS in biology, BA in environmental studies, and is working towards an MS in land resources and environmental sciences. She works collaboratively with subject matter experts to develop decision support tools based in sound science. One quick housekeeping: if we do get questions from the floor, ideally if we can repeat them for folks online, so they hear them, and then we'll be managing the chat for those online. Thanks. Welcome, Jadey.
Okay, I recognize Casey and Kayla, so I think actually there's some people who haven't heard Danny's Soil Health Initiative spiel. Who has not heard Danny's What is the Washington Soil Health Initiative? Okay, so I will actually not just breeze through those slides, and I will, in the first part of my talk, actually go through what is the Washington Soil Health Initiative. And then the second part of my talk will be what is a greenhouse gas inventory tool like the COMET tools and WaCSE, and how can we use them? And that will include a demo of WaCSE. And my name is Brian. I work with Leslie and Danny in the soils program at WSDA. And most of the pictures you'll see our expert photographer, Leslie. So credit to her. Okay, so the Washington Soil Health Initiative is a tri-agency collaboration between the Conservation Commission, the Washington State Department of Agriculture, and Washington State University. And we're trying to offer a win-win opportunity for the farmers, for the people of Washington, and of course the environment, through things like funding opportunities, outreach and education, policy support, and of course, research. So there's 4 primary goals for the Washington Soil Health Initiative, or WaSHI for short. The first is to increase awareness of soil health. The second is to document the state of the soils. The third is to improve understanding of soil health building practices. And then the fourth is to help land managers actually adopt those soil health building practices. So those 4 goals kind of end up in this one big picture of Washington is really diverse. We have really diverse soils, climate, geology, production systems. And so to improve soil health across the state, we need to have diverse solutions. So one of the projects from WaSHI, or the Washington Soil Health Initiative, is this soil health roadmap. And this was a project led by WSU, who did a lot of listening sessions and interviews with commodity groups and producers across the state and across several different production systems. And their key goals were to identify what challenges are there to soil health, what are the knowledge gaps, and what are the goals and what are the milestones for improving soil health. So the result of this project was a 124-page document, which has different chapters for each of these what are called focus areas. So there's Columbia Basin irrigated potato, dryland agriculture, grapes, Northwestern annual crops. So there's a variety of them, and we can access these in the QR code, and Bobby will post the PDF of these slides so that all the resources here will be available to you. And some of the exciting news is that we're getting a new chapter, a new focus area for red raspberry. So another big project for the soil health initiative is the long-term research sites. So these are called LTARs, and we have 6 now across Washington and across multiple different cropping systems. And we actually have the country's most densely populated network, which is really cool because these long-term stations allow us to measure the impacts of different conservation practices to soil health over time under somewhat controlled conditions and over a changing climate, which we cannot necessarily control. Okay, so then the other major project is the State of the Soil Assessment, which Pine Creek CD, Walla Walla CD, and a bunch of other CDs have participated in to actually go out on the ground, meet with producers, get their management history so that we can understand the results that come back from these soil samples. So the main goal is to increase understanding of soil health across the state and across the different cropping systems as well. So including this year, we've now sampled 876 different fields in 30 different counties, in 67 different crops or land use types. And we measured this for 30 different soil health indicators. And I really want to pause here and just thank the district staff, because without you guys, our number would be like 50. Because there's no way that we have the same connections that you do with the land managers and the producers that would allow us access to fields and to the management history. So we are eternally grateful for you all. And this is a dashboard that WSDA created where you can actually interact with the sample, where we have sampled across the state. And then you can also filter by like county, crop type, crop group, all of that, so that you can see where we sampled, where we still have areas that we don't have any samples or data from, and QR code there for it's publicly available to access. And then 2023 samples obviously aren't included yet, but stay tuned. Okay, so as a token of our appreciation for all of the participating land managers, we provide these custom soil health reports. And these reports will include some background on the project and then the results of their soil samples. And in 2023, we're improving those reports so that they have more context and more help with interpreting what those results mean. And so one of those resources that we'll be including is this webinar that Danny Gilardi, who's the lead soil scientist at WSDA, she did this webinar recently, and it explains what sorts of measurements there are and what they will tell us about the soil. So this will be included in the reports and is also just a really good reference if you want to refresh on like what these indicators can mean, and also send to any of the producers you're working with who might be interested. Okay, so this is sort of the breaking news for WaSHI programming, is that we have a new program coming that just got funded, and it's called STAR, yet another acronym in the acronym soup. And it stands for Saving Tomorrow's Agriculture Resources. And what this program is a voluntary program where producers will get rewarded with public recognition and economic incentives for better soil and land management. So it's a free voluntary program, and it was created by farmers for farmers to reward land management. So there's going to be a science committee that helps to create different field assessment forms. And then those forms will then be used to rank different fields based on like 1 to 5 stars, 5 stars being the best. And depending on how many stars is the reward. So it could be an economic incentive like dollars per acre, could be just bragging rights, or there's like signs that farmers can put in front of their farms. So similar to like an organic certification where it's the producer is recognized for their hard work. And we are hiring somebody to answer probably all the questions that you guys have about STAR, because this is a brand new program. And we need somebody with sort of a business or economics background that will be able to help create and implement this program, working directly with Danny, Leslie, and I. The first poll of applications was yesterday. However, it's a continuous recruitment. So that means that we are still encouraging you to apply in case nobody is selected from the first round. Okay, so STAR, its main purpose is to improve the business case for soil health and reward the producers for implementing healthy management practices. Now, the couple timelines are the STAR Science Committee would form this July, ideally, and then producer enrollment would start June of next year in 2024. And then this is a roundup of WaSHI resources. So one of the funner pieces of news here is that we're getting a new WaSHI website. And instead of having to refer people to WSU's website and WSDA's website, everything will be kind of conglomerated into just one resource so that there's less, we're having to remember where something is that you're looking for. So stay tuned for that. And then Karen also gave a plug for the field day that's in Mount Vernon, July 27. And I think there's still forms out there that have the QR code with the registration. Okay, so I'll pause here for any questions for the soil health initiative in general, but please don't ask me about STAR because I don't know.
STAR. Just this quick, how far along is the guidelines?
Okay, so STAR has been implemented in Colorado, Iowa, and a couple other states, and so there are some guidelines to follow for Washington to sort of follow in their footsteps, but the details I don't know.
So that helps. It's an established program.
Yes.
Pulling in and make site specific for us.
Yes.
And the hope is yeah, there's 9 states that have already adopted it, and there's, quite a number more that are just starting the process. And so hopefully, as it goes through, because it's a nationwide, it'll have get more attention from the big, Kellogg's, McDonald's, those sorts of things.
Yeah. So I can't remember which state, but Kellogg's pays like $20 an acre for having 5 stores. So there's money involved, or there can be.
So this most recent season was the 3rd year of the soil health initiative?
2019, 2020.
About 4 years. So in looking, I know the 4th year data is still being
We don't have
processed,
that yet.
but in looking at the first 3 years, were there any surprises or any standout interesting
We
pieces?
haven't really been able to dive into the data that much, but we did also get funding for a postdoc that's going to work with WSU's Deirdre Yu. So she's a soil scientist, and then this person will also be working closely with Danny, and they're going to work solely on the statistics behind the state of the soil data set. So we're really excited for that because that's where we get the insights from, and being able to connect the management data to the actual measurement results. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah. So like the soil health reports that you send back to the landowners or producers, does that give any sort of like management recommendation? Or is it mostly just kind of telling them like what the test shows, you know, what I mean, like, is there, I just, my only concern is like, are we expected to help them walk through the test results and I don't know, chat about next level then?
That's a good question, and I realize I have not been repeating the questions for the online audience. So the question was, do the soil health reports also provide management recommendations? And the answer is no. The short answer is no. We provide sort of the high level explanation of what that measurement tells you. But as a state agency, it gets kind of into the weeds, trickiness and shadiness of actually recommending, like, you should be applying X rate of fertilizer or anything like that. So Danny is happy to meet with folks and sort of like talk things through. But these reports are mostly a starting point. And as we get more data and as the postdoc is analyzing the data and drawing out those insights, hopefully we'll be able to provide more context of like more is better for a certain measurement, less is better for another measurement. And then the land managers can sort of make decisions based off of that. But we can't necessarily say, based on these results, you should apply this. Okay, so I will move on to the greenhouse gas inventory and conservation scenario analysis tools, and that's what they call them in like comment documentation. So what does that actually mean? So if you were at Karen's presentation this morning, she did a really good job of explaining sort of what carbon sequestration is in greenhouse gases and how this relates to agriculture and different practices. So there's a multitude of tools out there that can help you inventory greenhouse gas emissions based on a baseline business as usual versus what it would look like if you were to add a conservation practice. So the main point of these tools is to estimate climate benefits. And the main tools that I'll talk about today are Common Farm, Comet Planner, and WaCSE. And so a high level overview of them is Comet Farm is the most robust of the three. It has the most data requirements. You have to have 20 years of historical management. And Comet Planner is the generalized version of Comet Farm that uses Comet Planner's data, or sorry, Comet Farm's data. And then WaCSE is just Comet Planner's data set filtered to Washington only. And then the interface itself has some additional features that are hopefully more useful for you folks on the ground who are actually interacting and helping producers work through these estimates. Okay, so there's lots of use cases for climate benefit estimates. And I'm hoping I can get audience participation. And would anybody like to share like what they've used Comet Planner, Comet Farm, WaCSE for? I know some of you have. Reporting?
Yeah, to apply.
Yes, yes, yes. So for the sustainable farms and fields reporting, right? Incentive program. So sustainable farms and fields requires the either WaCSE or Comet Planner or some other sort of estimate to be really competitive in the program. And so you can use these climate benefit estimates for applying to these incentive programs. They're also good for just decision making. Like if you have a landowner who wants to implement some sort of climate smart practice, but doesn't know really which one would be sort of the best bang for their buck, then these tools are good for that too, because our soils and our climate are so different that one practice isn't necessarily going to be as effective in one county as another county. So these tools can come in handy. Conservation farm plans and carbon markets, like way down the road, but some, at least for Washington. So, COMET methods and the science and calculations and the model behind it are going to be outside of the scope of this talk, but I do want to leave you with some resources. So one of the main references that I use all the time is the COMET Planner report. And this does a good job of explaining sort of that COMET farm is like the robust model with all the inputs. And then COMET Planner is a bunch of those model output average per multi-county region. So this document describes that process and those tools and how the tools are different. And then the other handy part of it is it has one-page summaries of each of the practices. And it also has the conditions or the assumptions of those baseline management so that you can understand like what it really means when you're choosing a practice implementation of like no-till or cover crops, like what's expected to be on the ground before implementing those practices. And then there's the COMET Farm Tools Help Desk, which has a lot of frequently asked questions and short articles, and you also can submit help or support tickets if you need specific help. And then they also have a YouTube channel called COMET Tools, and that's a good resource if you're a visual learner and want to walk through a tutorial of COMET Planner or COMET Farm. Okay, so this is $1 million question, is when people hear that WaCSE has the same data as COMET Planner, like what was the point of creating yet another tool? So once upon a time in 2019, when the legislature passed Sustainable Farming to the Field, we had to figure out a way to rank the applications based on their climate impacts. And so COMET Farm is just too time consuming and requires too much detailed historic knowledge about the field. So it's not really good for statewide sort of comparison. COMET Planner, you can only get an estimate one county at a time. So we have to do that one county at a time, put it in a spreadsheet, do it for the next county. Like it would just be too much. And then working through the spreadsheet, that they have a spreadsheet online that you can download. Also, highly inconvenient. So WaCSE was born. And WaCSE, it takes one step of the COMET Planner process away where you have to select your state because it's filtered to Washington. So you don't have to select Washington, you can go straight into the county. And you can explore more with less clicking. Like you can compare counties, like I just explained, you have to do it like one county at a time. With WaCSE, you can look at multiple counties at one time. And COMET Planner only gives you a table for your estimates and your output. So it's not really very helpful for visualizing or interpreting your estimates. And so this is something that we work really hard with WaCSE, is to help the user understand what does a reduction of 8 metric tons CO2 equivalents actually mean. So the last, like this all kind of comes together with WaCSE allows you to compare climate benefits, not only across practices, but also across counties, and then also gives you the tools to visualize those comparisons. Okay, so Karen also had this graphic up earlier, but I just want to reiterate that WaCSE is a crude estimator and is for the application process where you just need a quick and dirty estimate of what are my potential impacts. Versus COMET Farm is the more robust tool where you can actually get into the nitty-gritty and you have the details of the farm, and this is what you should be using for your reports. Okay, so I'm gonna go through a series of screenshots to sort of compare these tools and really understand like what the differences are and tease out when you should use which tool. So user interface is kind of sprinkled in just because they're screenshots. But the data, the visualization, and the reporting, those are the main pieces of how WaCSE is different from Comet Planner. Okay, so Comet Farm, I'm going to move the little zoom off. Okay. Okay, a little better. Okay, so Comet Farm, it requires 20 years of historical management data, and it generates a 10-year prediction. So again, it's the most robust because you are picking your parcel within your field, and then you have to enter in your crop and planting date, your tillage implements, irrigation, manure compost application, liming, burning, fertilizer application. So there's a lot of different pieces of data that you have to enter for 20 years for your crop rotation. Versus Comet Planner requires no management history. You're just picking your conservation class, you're just picking the standard and implementation, and then putting in the acres. So it's a lot simpler. And then it generates an annual average over the 10 years because it is still using outputs from Comet Farm. So it's still over a 10-year average. So Comet Planner uses generalized Comet Farm outputs. And then WaCSE uses Comet Planner's data, but it's filtered to just WaSHI. So this is a screenshot of the inputs for WaCSE, and you've got the option to select multiple counties for an exploratory analysis of like which practices are going to have different estimates based on what county you're in. And then you'll pick your conservation class, practice. And then it's also a little bit different from Comet Planner in that it also has steps for current land use and irrigation type. And that's mostly because when districts are working with producers, they're probably working all in one. Like if you're in Whitman County, non-irrigated. So to sort of take out that step of having to scroll through all the irrigated options and then pick non-irrigated, you can just filter out to just non-irrigated. Okay, so then visualization, Comet Planner just includes the tables. It doesn't have anything else. It just, you put in your acreage and then you get your carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, methane, total CO2. WaCSE has a table, and this table you can also download as a spreadsheet. It also includes plots. So I'm a really visual person, so I find it more helpful to see that this bar for legume seasonal cover crop is going to have a greater emissions reduction than a non-legume seasonal cover crop. So it gives you that visual interpretation in addition to the table. And my favorite part is the EPA equivalencies calculations. So EPA has a little web tool where it has these equations to convert CO2 equivalents reduced or emissions reduced to like things that we are familiar with, like gallons of gas consumed, number of smartphones charged. So it provides more meaning to that CO2 equivalent estimate rather than just being told, okay, I reduced 8.5 metric tons of CO2 equivalent. You get to say like, okay, well that's the same as the carbon sequestered by 10 acres of US forests in a year. So it provides that additional interpretation. Okay, so then reporting is similar to the visualization. Comet Planner's report, it's just the table. and the like footnotes of the special circumstances, like a negative value. Like it's not really helpful to hand to a grower and have them understand like what this means. So WaCSE has, the report gives you background information. It gives you the definitions of what is carbon dioxide equivalent, what are total greenhouse gases, those sorts of things. And it also includes the tables and the plots and the EPA goals. So this is a standalone report that could be handed to somebody who's working on a project and wants to see the comparison, wants to understand what does it actually mean. Okay, the fun part is the demo. So I'm gonna move over here. Sharing the window should have talked about.
Something's happening.
The application is later. Karina, can you confirm if the audience can see the? Okay, great. I think, so this is an online website and it doesn't go straight in the Wi-Fi. Okay, so this is the main screen of WaCSE, and you'll first, when you first open it up, you get this little window that pops up that says, what is WaCSE, what can you do with it? And it tells you that you can look for these little question mark icons for help if you get stuck with anything or just want to know what are your options. And then something that's important to note is that the data are not saved on the website. So if you want to reuse this stuff and not have to like re-enter all of your inputs, then you can either download the spreadsheet or download the report. And do all of that without leaving this window inactive for 10 minutes, because it will time out because we are paying for a subscription that runs by the hour. So okay, so then you can click away to dismiss that, and there are 4 tabs. So there's the explore the data. This is where you don't have to enter any acres, like you just want a quick estimate, and you're just going to look at the coefficients of the emission reduction. Then the calculate your estimate tab is going to be where you put in your acres, and you actually have like a project that you want to download a report for. The understand your impact is that EPA equivalencies calculator and graphic, and then the about is the information page. And I'll go over each of those tabs. So we're in the explore the data tab, and we have our definitions, and we also have links to Comet Farm and that Comet Planner report that I mentioned earlier. And you can minimize this box if you've read it and you just want it out of your way. So then the first step, if you want, is to look at the little help button, and this will tell you what these things are and how you can use the features. So give me a county. King County. Okay, so you can select all the counties you want, or you can scroll, or you can start typing. And so let's do King. Give me another county. Welcome. Give me another county in Eastern Washington. Columbia. Okay. just to see like a real difference. Okay. Give me a class. Cropland, grazing land, cropland, okay. How about a practice? Anybody? Tillage, okay, so that is residue and tillage management. Let's go no till. Okay, current land use, cropland, and these ones more like, they can be a little bit tedious if you're only looking at cropland, but you can deal with it. Sorry. So, current land use, irrigation type. Then we have our table that pops up. And this gives you the county, the practice implementation, and the total greenhouse gas. And you also can choose to view the other carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, methane, if you want to see the nitty-gritty rather than just the total estimate or the total greenhouse gas coefficient. So you can also, if you're looking at a bunch of counties or a bunch of practices, like we can add more, like we can choose also mulching and strip cropping. And so we get more and more. And if we have more than 10 rows, we can change the number of rows that shows. So there's different options. You can download the table as a spreadsheet. And the reason that might have noticed that they're separated by major land resource areas. And that's because these estimates and coefficients are for multi-county regions by major land resource areas, MLRA. So that's, we also include this MLRA map and sort of a description of why we're including this map. Because if you were to try to compare Berry and Stevens County, you can see that they're both in the same MLRA Northern Rocky Mountains. So your estimates are very likely to be the exact same. So just something to keep in mind as far as when you're choosing to compare counties. Okay, so this is our explore table. Now let's visualize it in the plot. So you can see the bars, and it is actually the same. So that's boring. Let's choose a different. Okay, so now they're different. So now we can see reduced till and no-till, or strip till, and irrigated cropland has a greater impact in Kittitas than King County. So you can also hover over these bars, and it will tell you, it'll spell out the practice and the emission reduction coefficients. And you can also download the plot if you would like. So that is the Explore tab. And now we're going to calculate your estimates. So let's go back to King and cropland and no-till, irrigated, and so now in this step, we're actually picking which implementation that we want to get our estimate for versus the Explore tab. It just shows all the different implementations of the practice that you choose. So now we're going to pick, we want intensive tills to no-till or strip till. And let's say we have 100. So then we can click add, and then it will show up in the same table as the other page, except now this table automatically calculates your emission reductions in metric tons, CO2 equivalent per year. And it's simple math, it's just multiplying that coefficient that was on the last page with the acres to give you your estimate. And you can, again, download the spreadsheet. And so if I hit download here and open it, you can see that you get a spreadsheet. If you wanted to do any other analysis, if you wanted to do other formulas in Excel or bring it into R, Python, anything super snazzy and techy like that. Okay, so then you also can look at your bar graph, which I only have one practice in here, so that would really help me. Let's say that we actually only wanted 50 acres. So right now, you actually have to click on that row and then remove it. I am eventually going to work on something where you can edit the acres in the table instead of having to delete and re-add. So that's something coming down the pipeline. So for now, we just deleted it, and then we're going to add our 50 acres instead.
In the Excel sheet that you download, are there equations behind that?
No, it's just the raw data. Yeah,
Jadey, I don't know,
I might have messed up, but you designed this and made it happen, right?
Yes.
You did the program. Okay.
yes.
I just wanted to, it didn't seem like you were taking a lot of credit. So
Okay, so the question, one of the questions was. I'm forgetting already. What did you ask me?
The data.
the data behind the.
Oh, yeah,
Excel
so
sheet.
there's, in the spreadsheet, the question was, is there any formulas in the spreadsheet? There's no formulas in the spreadsheet. It is just the raw, either coefficient or estimate. And then the other column is, how was this created? And it was created by moi, using our shine. Okay, so, let's see, where was I? Okay, let's add a different practice. And add some mulching in there. And some of these practices don't have an irrigation type, so it's just not specified. So let's do 50 acres. Okay, so now we can scroll down and there's this summarize and download box. And now we can see, okay, our project has 100 acres of practice implementation, and we're estimating to reduce 25 metric tons CO2 equivalent per year. And if you were doing a bunch of comparisons between counties, this little table would be more helpful because it just kind of hides like which practices you're actually implementing, and shows you how many unique ones there are and the total reduction. So you can also download this table. But the fun part is downloading the report. So it's optional to include a farm name or organization or project name. So you can leave them blank and then just click download and then wait for the magic to happen. Okay, and then you get this PDF. And it has a link if somebody wants to redo the analysis or redo the inputs. And it gives you the date that it's created, it gives you all the definitions. And the tables and the charts and the equivalency. So this is a report that you can hand to somebody, self-contained, that they would hopefully be able to understand what CO2 equivalence reduced means in terms that they would understand and that are meaningful to them. Okay, so once we go back.
Just a heads up, it's not separate.
Okay. And so then this is the understand your impact tab where you can enter in your reduction. So that would be from this box here, so 25. And you put in 25. And then get all these little indicators that tell you things that are more easy to understand. And then the about, which is just all the definitions, same thing that's in the reference. And back to my documents. Okay, so when do you use which tool? So if you just need a quick and dirty estimate, you don't have a lot of the like historical management, you can use Comet Planner or WaCSE. Same data set. The difference is if you care about the interpretation or the visualization of your estimates, then we recommend using WaCSE. Or if you're comparing multiple counties, then WaCSE is the only one that you can really use. But if you don't care about the plots, you don't care about the report, you just want your estimate, and you're only looking in one county, Comet Planner is perfectly fine to use. So it's very easy to understand or easy to use tool. Comet Farm, on the other hand, is when you need to input that 20 years of historic management and do that more detailed analysis of that more robust model. So there is this report to the legislature in 2022, and it's mostly about this compost program, but near the end, it has a whole section that compares greenhouse gas inventory tools, and this is a table from it. So not only is Comet Farm and WaCSE included, but there's Daycent and Cool Farm, and it tells you sort of what inputs there are available and like the usability of that as far as data inputs and technical expertise. The link, if you want to try it out for yourself. And then I am a nerd and love to talk like R, code, data management, whatever. So my email is here if you have any questions. If you're using WaCSE for like some crazy thing, I would love to hear about it. If you have any feature requests or anything like that, I'm open. Thank you.
So that's exciting. I don't know how you pull all that together, but
Yes, okay.
Oh, just one quick clarification, because I think
Yeah,
maybe I didn't communicate this to you directly, Jadey, is that we are no longer requiring Comet Farm for
Oh,
the reporting side of the farm.
thank you for saying that. I have no idea.
yeah. Awesome. Cool. Any other questions for Jadey?
Does it include conversion?
It has, there's a class of like cropland to urban cover, and there's some like urban plantings. I would recommend looking at that comment center report because it breaks down like what each conservation class is and then what practices are included in those classes. And so that's another feature that I would like to add is in those tables, including links to those one-pagers so that people can easily just click and see like, what does this practice actually do? So that's like a great tool.
And
I just want to say, a really nice tool.
yeah.
Thank you. This is my first shiny app from Scotland.
I guess I might have missed this, but what is the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions? When you choose a certain practice, but what's the, how does it determine how much less greenhouse gas emissions?
Oh, I think I understand.
Like, what's it based on?
Yeah, so comment, so the question is, what are the reductions compared to, or like the baseline to it? So Comet Farm, you have to enter all your data, NRCS it, and use the technical documents for each conservation practice standard, and then develop sort of a baseline, like in each region, of like what's standard, and then use that as sort of their baseline inputs for Comet Planner. And so then that is also what WaCSE uses. So if you want to like get into the nitty gritty, check out the NRCS like specs.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Jadey.